On this day, November 26, in 1997, Alien Resurrection was released in theaters, marking the last time Sigourney Weaver took on the role of Ellen Ripley for a film in the series. It's mind-blowing to think it's been 2 decades since we saw Weaver playing the role, but here we are. Alien films are still being made, as recently as Alien Covenant, which came out this year, but the character of Ellen Ripley seems to be in the rearview now. Resurrection was the 4th film in the Alien series, and since then, 4 more movies, all working as prequels, have been released to date. As it currently stands, Alien Resurrection is the furthest the story has progressed, timeline-wise, in an Alien film. Now that 20 years have passed, and more movies have come, how does it hold up, as an entry in the saga, and as a movie in general? At the time it came out, there hadn't been too significant of a gap between this new Alien film and Alien 3, which was made 5 years prior. It wasn't an especially lengthy wait between an original trilogy and a new film, such as a series like Indiana Jones or even Die Hard, not to mention Star Wars Episode 1, which was one of the most anticipated movies of all time, being released about 15 years after the last film in that series. So there wasn't really a lot of time to miss Ripley, was there? It was less of a grand return and more just business as usual, I guess. And at that time, big, dumb, special effects-filled blockbuster movies were more commonplace than ever before. And there wasn't much that made it stand out, at least certainly not in the way that Alien stood out in the 70s and Alien stood out in the 80s. It opened to mixed reviews from critics, and the fan reaction was more or less the same, with many agreeing at the time that it was at least a little bit of a step up from Alien 3. I myself never got the chance to see it in theaters, but I did end up catching it on cable where it played over and over, and I watched it over and over. From a completely biased, personal perspective, I do owe a lot to Alien Resurrection because it was the movie that got me into the Alien series. I had seen Alien 3 before it, but I was maybe only 6 at the time. And afterwards I got some of the Kenner toys, which were still in circulation, and some of the comic books, but then I just kind of forgot about it. Alien Resurrection actually kind of re-sparked my inner Alien fan, and even though when I first watched it, I didn't even really like it that much, I ended up watching it more times, and warming to it, and I couldn't help but be fascinated by it. So with this fascination, I was inspired to track down the previous 3 films on VHS so I could revisit Alien 3 and experience Alien and Aliens for the very first time. After that, there was no going back. I've been Alien obsessed ever since. So I have to admit, I owe Alien Resurrection thanks for that. It's a very strange film to me though, because every time I watch it, I literally have no idea how I'm going to react to it. Sometimes I really enjoy it and appreciate it for what it is, but other times, I think it's just the stupidest, most pointless movie ever. I watched it last night to commemorate the 20th anniversary, and thankfully it was one of the times that I enjoyed the movie, but that doesn't make all of its faults disappear, maybe just less offensive if you're in the right mood. And maybe it can depend on whether or not you're marathoning the movies in order, or just giving it an isolated viewing on its own. Both Alien 3 and Resurrection had a lot to live up to considering how impactful the first 2 films were, serving as the absolute best of the best of their genres and pushing boundaries in special effects and storytelling techniques. One of the things I love about the original 4 movies is how each movie, though telling a continuing story, has its own director, with their own vision and their own way to tell what is basically the same old story of a monster or monsters picking off people one by one. Ridley Scott, James Cameron, and David Fincher of the first 3 are all legendary directors, and their work in the series is absolutely wonderful. Jean-Pierre Jeunet was a pretty daring choice to assign for a 4th film, and I have to give the studio credit for that, and I do think he puts his own unique stamp on the series. I really liked the murky, nightmarish-looking style of the film. I know not everyone did, but I think it was appropriate enough for an Alien film, and I'm glad to see with 4 movies in, each still has its own visual distinctions. The set design is very impressive, and for the most part, the special effects are really good. When it comes to the actual practical effects, I think they're top of the line. While I prefer to keep the aliens in the dark and let the fear seep into your imagination, if they're going to really show off the aliens such as they do here, and have them front and center, then at least they do a very convincing job of it. The animatronics and puppetry effects hold up great, It probably goes without saying, though, that the CGI does not. It definitely does not. CGI still was in sort of its early days in the 90s, but after Jurassic Park, I think filmmakers were inspired to take their own shots at creating fully rendered creatures entirely out of CGI. And looking back on some of those movies, whether it be something like Men in Black, which kind of gets a pass because it's a comedy, I guess, or Species, another H.R. Giger monster, or, God forbid, that Lost in Space reboot, they can be pretty hard to watch. And the CGI in them can be pretty cringe-inducing. I will give Alien Resurrection credit for its restraint, though. While there are CGI-rendered aliens, they are used sparingly, and they're not the worst example of CG monsters I've ever seen, so I think that's worth something. It's a product of its time, really. It was happy to meet the status quo rather than exceed it or push to new boundaries. I can't really damn the film for that, but it's disappointing considering the high bar that the Alien series set for itself. But in terms of production quality, money on the screen, I think it holds up just about as well as any 1997 sci-fi horror action movie could. As far as the story goes, there's a lot left to be desired, for sure. But with Ripley dying in the last film, concluding as a trilogy, they backed themselves into a corner as far as it went with the character. They only really had two choices if they wanted both the alien and Ripley back. Either have Ripley wake up from her cryotube to discover that everything in Alien 3 was just a nightmare, which would have been beyond cheesy and lazy writing, or go with what they chose to do here, literally bring Ripley back from the dead, resurrect her, and the alien through cloning, which is, I guess, right at the bitter edge of cheesy and lazy writing still. For what it's worth, though, even if the story isn't exactly innovative, I really loved the thematic elements that came from it. With Ripley now as a clone, I thought it was very intriguing to have her connection to the alien all the more personal, and actually have the alien be a part of her. It allowed Sigourney Weaver to do new things with the role, and keeping the script and the direction aside, Weaver's work as an actress is excellent. Here, she shows why she's worth that big paycheck, and why, at least at the time, Ripley and the alien had to be a package deal. I loved seeing the struggles of the character, unsure of where her loyalty is supposed to lie, and finally meeting a kindred spirit in the universe, the Auton, Call, played by Winona Ryder. A character that's also not quite human, and is unable to identify. There's good sexual tension between the two, but appropriately not too explicit, because the series has always dealt with psychosexual undercurrents, and sexual identity was a good theme to play off in this entry. Weaver and Ryder have a really good chemistry, and they play off each other very well. And in general, I think the cast that they've assembled for the movie is excellent. There are some incredibly talented actors in the movie. And for example, seeing Brad Dourif, cocooned in the Hive, raving like a madman, is simply a thing of beauty, and I value that greatly. There are so many little things about Alien Resurrection that I really love, and I just wish that they'd all amount to a great movie, but admittedly they don't. When all is said and done, the movie doesn't really accomplish all that much. They bring Ripley back, she fights against the aliens with a group of survivors who get picked off one by one. They defeat the aliens in the end. The man behind the curtain is starting to show now. We're starting to recognize the same old plot that the other filmmakers in the series were so skilled in distracting us from. I think unsatisfying is probably the best word to use when it comes to Alien Resurrection. Looking at it from the larger perspective of the series as a whole, it's definitely further down on the list when it comes to my favorites. Alien and Aliens are masterpieces that pretty much can't be beat. I consider myself a fan of Alien 3, and I think despite the well-documented production problems, a worthwhile film emerged, a film that I have a lot of affection for. I also consider myself a fan of Prometheus and Alien Covenant, though I'm well aware that they're divisive films, to put it mildly. At the very least, I'd say Resurrection is still a lot better than either of the Alien vs. Predator films in my opinion, which were basically B-movies, though even those have their value in some ways. So 20 years later now, I think Alien Resurrection holds up okay. I don't really love or hate the movie. I enjoy it on more than enough levels to keep me going back to it and being able to be entertained by it for the most part. And I think I even value it more with each passing year because we keep getting further away from Ripley's story. I know I'm not alone in saying I really miss Ripley. I want to see her back at least one more time. I really hope that happens someday, but for now, Alien Resurrection serves as her last adventure, and I appreciate it on that level. So what do you think? Does Alien Resurrection hold up 20 years later? Are you a fan of the film? Do you appreciate it a little bit more after Prometheus and Covenant, if you're not a fan of those? Are you like me and can never tell if you're going to enjoy it or roll your eyes at it? Comment below and share your thoughts, and let's wish Alien Resurrection a happy 20th. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI executive, EmYarUk, part of the Patreon Hive. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.